So today we're going to be talking about children on their birthdays, the short story. And here's page number one. And let's just dive right in. So the first thing right off the bat, it talks about the Miss Bobbitt getting ran over. And right off the bat, I was like, that's a tragedy. Like a young kid dying. She was only 10 years old. So it starts off with a tragedy. And it talks about like basically when she first came into town, how she was an outsider. And obviously, there's a lot of obvious devil imagery, not just in the first paragraph, but throughout the whole thing. So, like, we get that imagery of devil cake and red road dust appears. So, like, red, like devil. Like, obviously, she's perceived as something negative. So, I put devil imagery. Let's see. And then down here, there's a lot of similes too. Um, we start to see that she starts to act very precocious for her age. Like she's kind of like breaking the stereotypical boundaries that kids aren't normally this precocious. Like it says in this next paragraph over here, she wears makeup. She gets her hair all nicely done, and I think I had to know a pencil tilt. Like there's all these things that like she looks like an adult basically, and she's even likened to like a midget, not even a kid later on in the in the story. But she's very adult like. That's very important, and so it talks about that. It sets that up, and then okay, this is also very important. So not only is she breaking the stereotypical child role. She's like breaking like also like the gender role when she's got this man like directness. So like she's a very interesting character in the fact that she breaks not only one boundary but like two boundaries. So she's like this really like she's so different from everyone else in the story. Um, let's see, and there's a lot of similes. So that's the first page. Here's the next page right here. And this is the page where we get a lot of sensory imagery. I really like this line right here where it was like, by now it was almost nightfall. A firefly hour, blue as milk glass, and birds like arrows swooped together and swept into the folds of the trees. Very naturey. Um, and we get this really interesting juxtaposition right here where in the beginning we got all this red imagery, but now as she's practicing her dancing, it describes her wearing a white skirt like powder, another simile, and it's very contrasting with the devil imagery we got with the red before. And basically, let's see, we're gonna go down here. We get an allusion down here to Dr. Martin Luther King, where it says, "Send me a letter, send it by mail, send it in care of the Birmingham jail." So basically, I pretty much am sure that it's talking about Martin Luther King's Birmingham jail, the letter from Birmingham jail, and and then I thought this was weird at the bottom right here when she was talking about her dad being in jail, and she's very nonchalant and like direct with it. So she's very adult like. She's not like a whiny child. So more that adult imagery. And then we know that her mom doesn't talk, which is another interesting aspect to the story because she has to talk on behalf of the mom rather than what it usually ends up being the mom talking on behalf of the child. So that's like another thing of like switching those roles of child and mother. And we get some nice imagery here as well. One of my favorite ones on this page was Mrs. Sawyer layers of cold cream and cream whitening her face. Thought that was a good image. And then we like then we find out that like the boys in the town like Billy and Preacher like they love this girl like they just like like you see throughout the story like they're under this sort of spell like she is the devil like she's like tempting them. Um, let's see. Oh, more imagery. I think it's kind of funny, like how like they're talking about devil food cake, and then it's like devil eggs. Like they're just like working. He's working the word devil into the story. And then okay, there's this interesting theme that we see throughout the story of like, for instance, in this line right here, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't whip you. When Billy Bob's mom was talking about punishing him, like she's saying like I wouldn't love you, I wouldn't hit you if I didn't love you. And there's a point in the story where Mrs. Bobbitt talks about basically how like if they didn't love me, they wouldn't like say bad things about me, or like there's always that like with love comes like hate or something like that. Like there's that relationship. So I feel like that's an important theme. Here's page 188 right here. Let's see. More images of her being like precocious. Like she's like in her downtime, she reads the Webster's dictionary. Like what kid wants to do that? She's not out playing. She's reading the dictionary. She's also got this ability to see right through her children counterparts. Like they're trying to impress her. Like she can see right through them. Like she's not interested in like children's affairs. So in that way, she's also precocious. Um, let's see. Okay, and then in this bottom paragraph here, it's when we're first introduced to her black friend, and they use a lot of racist words, and I guess it just like outlines the time, like or okay, but this is really interesting. Like everyone's like racist and like they're derogatory towards this black girl, but she's not. Mrs. Bobbitt is not, and I thought that was really interesting. It really sets her apart from like the rest of the people in the story. And I mean at this point I was kind of formulating like she's so precocious and she's so like accepting, like I don't know, I feel like she's like maybe at this point she represents like some form of new ideals, or like I don't know how like racism might end in the future. Like she represents the future or something, and maybe that's why people don't take too kindly to her. Like she dresses like she's an adult. She sees through things. She's very knowledgeable. Um, but yeah, that was just a thought that I had there. Um, let's see. It even says right here, whatever she did, it was with completeness and so directly. It's like she was doing all these crazy things. She's like, call me Miss Boppet. Like she's a kid. Like no one's gonna call her that. But like she's so direct about it, and she's so clear and she's so confident that like it ends up becoming truth. Like people are like, oh, she's like serious about this. So I guess it goes with that. It also goes with the theme of like dreaming. Like I feel like going back to like the discussion we had this week, she's like definitely a dreamer. Like that's her state of mind. She's a dreamer, and whenever she dreams, she manifests. um, and then we get some more interesting imagery, and down here we get the midget thing where um, the old man comes yelling out, and I think it was important that he was old. Like he's old. He's 70 something years old. He represents the old, like the old ideals, and like he comes out and he doesn't even acknowledge them as kids. He acknowledges them as midgets. So it's like they look like little adults, or maybe that's just what we're supposed to think because that's how they act. Um, let's see. Um, and oh yeah, and the older generation doesn't take too kindly to her in the beginning. Okay, then it goes off into her talking about church, which I thought was one of the most important parts in the whole play, or the whole short story. Here's the next page. So she goes on to talk about how you shouldn't really have to go to church. Like she's like, it's got a bad, I think odor. She said it was, and then she's like, no love the devil like you love Jesus. And at that point, I'm like, is she a Satan worshiper? Because he is powerful. He's a powerful man and will do you a good turn if he knows you trust him. So I thought that was like really symbolic, and I was like, what does the devil mean in this story? And it goes on to talk about oh, and then we get the line like children on their birthdays right there. I thought the devil represent like human desires in my interpretation, like the desires inside yourself. Um, and then we get to oh yeah, and then she starts like a business, and she gets Billy Bob and Preacher to like collect money for her. So she's very influential. I feel like she is like the devil, and she is that object that those kids want. So like she represents the devil. The kids are like getting her money. This is also another precocious like aspect of this character, and they're just acting like they're under a spell. Like they literally like even I think it was either Billy Bob or Preacher. Like their parents were like, "What's going on?" Like she has them under, like even they were like that she has them under this spell. We get an anaphora on this page when they're saying, "Kill him, kill him, kill him." A couple similes here and there. Um, let's see. Oh, and then this was interesting when she was talking about how she didn't want a sweetheart. So I felt like that was also breaking those like gender norms. Like little girls want a sweetheart usually, and like they I don't know. That's usually something a girl dreams about is having a boyfriend, but not her. She's so precocious. Like she just wants to like run a business and do her own thing. She's a dreamer. Um, so on this page right here, we've got this is my annotations right here, and let's see, we've got hold on.